Hello friends, this is Reflections, a religious affairs program sponsored by Paducah Cooperative Ministry, where together we do God's work with human hands. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Karen Winkel. I pastor United Church of Paducah, and I'm co-host with Gregory Waldrop, who is the pastor at Fountain Avenue United Methodist Church. Gregory, it's good to be together today.
Glad to be right here with you.
Wonderful.
And
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be with you all as well. We're in for a treat today. We have folks who give their time and heart and lives to the juveniles that are housed at the Juvenile Detention Center here in McCracken County. I'm glad to welcome Mike Gentry from Broadway United Methodist Church, Shirley Rouse, who is from Harrison Street Baptist Church, and Dave Dewey, also Broadway United Methodist Church. Welcome to all of you. We're so glad you're here, and we're glad for the work you do, and we want to hear about it. Tell us about the Juvenile Volunteer Services.
Well, Greg, thanks for having us, first of all. And it began, I guess, really for Dave and myself about 7 years ago. We were talking about that on the way in, but even before that time, before that facility was built back in 1999, there was a ministry going on. Prior to that, was led by Miss Shirley here, and it was housed in the old jail in the basement where they used to house the juveniles there. And you want to tell just a little bit how that got started?
All right, I surely will. About 14 years ago, my Sunday school class, we were just on fire to do something. We saw the need for our youngsters. Well, we had a lot of kids going to juvenile, and so they prevailed upon me and pushed me until I finally moved and contacted Howard Moss, who was the juvenile officer at the time, because this was all under the county at the time. And I talked to Howard because I did have a relationship there with him. I talked to him and he said, okay, I think we can do it, but you'll have to get the permission from the judge. And Judge Gregory Hines was county judge at the time. And I finally got up enough courage to write him a letter, and he was enthusiastic about it and allowed us to go in to the old jail. Of course, there were a lot of, at the time, the kids couldn't even have visits from their parents. They were just there. And so it was just by the grace of God that it all worked out. Everything just fell in place. Then when the state changed in '99, when the state took over the juvenile ministry, the juvenile detention, I was then working at the courthouse. And I got to see the people who were involved in the changeover. Having been involved with the juveniles, I knew a lot of the juvenile officers. And so it wasn't very hard to meet Mr. I think his name was Settleman, who was the superintendent at that time. And it's been going strong ever since.
That's great.
The only problem we've had has been keeping enough Bibles for the kids.
Wow.
Because we allow them to take the Bibles with them when they leave. Because, the Word of God, you can plant it, but it needs to be reinforced. And when the kids leave, we let them take the Bibles. So keeping enough Bibles for all of the kids has been a problem. Luckily, I was there last weekend and we didn't have a problem because the census of the detention center was down. Usually there's
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Right.
That's a good thing. I told one of the staff there that I was hoping they'd work themselves out of a job. You weren't too happy about that.
Our program kind of started, Shirley and I, we were discussing how we met, and it was back in 2001. And guys like myself and Dave and some others there at church, we were just the same thing. There's something out there that we need to be doing. And got together with a large group of folks, and there's 50 of us the first meeting. And met with one of the employees out there. His name's Chris Cooper, who's no longer there. He's football coach at Ballard right now.
Yeah.
So great guy, and he was very instrumental in getting us in there and getting us formed. And the idea was to go in and to add to the ministry that Shirley had already started and have a Bible study on Wednesday or something in that nature. And there's a lot of enthusiasm. It was pretty neat. And Chris came in one day and said, "Look, can't do a Bible study. It's a state-run facility, and this will be a required curriculum for the youth there to come to. So you can't do that." So we had a meeting that next month, and there was 12 of us left after that because it kind of took the sales out of everything. I thought, well, 12 is a good number, though. That's
Right. You've got some
And,
precedent to that one. Yeah.
And my pastor at the time, Richard Smith, you know, I was didn't know what to do with it, and he said, "Look, you're either going to do something positive, or you're not going to do anything at all." So Chris led us into doing some classrooms on life skills. And so JVS is dedicated to teaching these kids life skills. And Dave and I have been involved, all of us have been involved with that now for 7 years since its inception.
And life skills would be what exactly?
For instance, I teach on self-discipline and assertive behavior. And you know, it's really not brain surgery. You know, it's if you read and you can take something, anything to these kids.
Right.
They're
hungry
really hungry for it.
That interaction, I'm sure, is the heart of it.
Absolutely.
And, I'm sure there's a lot gets taught beyond the curriculum as well.
You get a lot of questions.
Yeah, a lot of
A lot of
questions.
questions, which is always really good. It's always really good.
Now there are several churches working with JVS now.
I think there, last count we had 9 different ones, which is really the beauty of this thing is our diversity makes us strong. I really believe that. You know, all different denominations, men, women, all different races, and that I think is what really strengthens this thing is the each unique gift that everybody brings to the ministry.
And the actual format is there is a particular day you go in.
We started Dave was just on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Right.
And about 3 years ago, the facility asked if we would mind expanding that, and we go Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays and Sunday afternoons now. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for some more volunteers if anybody has a heart for this right now. So
And we're there. I'm sorry. We're there every Sunday morning. We do Sunday school.
That's a voluntary kind of a thing.
It's a voluntary thing.
But the other 4 are actually required.
required to be there.
Right.
Well, one of the interesting things about that, though, is we saw, and the facility backed this up, we saw a greater attendance on Sunday morning worship once JVS because of the relationship building that started going on. And I think one of the key things that clicked for me, because I wanted to do the Bible study. That's what I wanted to do. And not being able to do that, teaching a class on self-discipline, and a young man raises his hand. He says, "Well, how's that square with what you were teaching me Sunday morning?" And I thought, okay, this thing's starting to click and work out here now.
Circles connected.
The circle's starting to connect. Yeah.
So each of the days that there's programming going on would have how many volunteers present?
On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, during those life skill classes, 1 volunteer apiece. And then on Saturdays, we teach 3 different classes, so we have 3 different volunteers coming in on Saturdays.
And then the Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, it's usually 2.
And there are 2 sessions, 2
Yes.
Sunday school sessions.
2 Sunday school
on Sunday
sessions.
morning.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about the juvenile facility out there. Obviously, how many kids, Dave, do you all usually see out there?
I'd say usually it's between 30 and 55. Probably they're pretty packed in the 50s, and you know, those ages range from 10 years old up through 17 going on 18. When they reach 18, they have to move on to an adult facility. But yeah, there are boys, girls, and like I say, ages from, I think the youngest I've encountered was 10 years old, which is really pretty
9-year-old.
shocking. Yeah, a 9-year-old. So very, sometimes very emotional, very really makes an impression on you when you see kids this young, and you think about sometimes the lack of teaching, the lack of love, the lack of any caring that they've had in their lives that have gotten them to that place. So I think that's something we all feel that God's using us to help maybe fill that void and show them that somebody does care for them and willing to spend some time with them.
What's the length of stay for most folks there, the juveniles there? Do you get a lot of people there for a long period of time, or is it a lot of turnover?
It's quite a bit of turnover. The last average that I'd heard, the average stay was 14 days. Now, we have had youth there that we've seen for 3 years or even longer. And so, yeah, you get quite a turnover, but you have your regulars too. So.
What about the facility itself? Where you go in, is it like a school setting? Is it more? Is it cells and is it bars, and what's the kind of nature of the place?
It's a very secure facility, and it's very strict and very disciplined. When you go in, you have to ring the buzzer, and you're outside. They ask you what your business is there, and if you say you're a JVS volunteer and it's time for a volunteer to be there, then they'll open the door for you. But and we have to sign in. You have to go through a pretty extensive security screening before you're allowed to go in. The facility itself is very secure. There's a central dispatch, I guess you would call it, or what do they call it there?
The guy behind the dark window.
Control, yeah. Control station where all the doors are controlled, and locked, unlocked remotely. And as you go in the facility, you're always accompanied by a staff person. We're never left alone. And when you go like into a hallway, the door locks behind you before the other door opens. And for our life skill classes, we are taking 2 classrooms, which are used as classrooms under the county school system. Supplies the teachers to teach out there. And we do use those classrooms for our life skill classes. The Sunday school on Sunday mornings held in the gymnasium. And like I said, they have 2 separate sessions, 2 units, what they call units. They're divided by age, 2 units at a time, 45-minute sessions each. But they're, we've never been into the housing units where they actually house them, but they have cafeteria and all the facilities to house them for however long they're there.
Are you open for other people? Is there a set curriculum that you're following, or does somebody bring their interest in and share that?
What we do is like Dave said, there's a background check because it is a juvenile facility. The state wants to know who's in, and all that stuff is kept confidential. So if anyone was interested, fill out the background check. The state does that, and then the facility would say, yeah, this person's cleared to go. And then there's about a 45-minute orientation. And then what we do, if a volunteer is really wanting to do that, they could shadow one of us for as long as they feel comfortable until they're ready to do it by themselves. Sometimes that's 1 time, sometimes that's 20 times. It doesn't matter. And then what we do is anything that we teach, we just draw an outline of it, or write up an outline of it to show the facility what we're going to be talking about. It's not a strict adherence to that, but it's just a rough outline of what you're going to do.
Content.
Yes, content.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's pretty much it. We've had people talk about balancing checkbooks to forgiveness, anything. These kids are really hungry for a multitude of things, and anybody out there listening that would be interested in that, just feel free to contact any one of us, and we can get you set up on that.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. This is the called the Juvenile Volunteer Services,
Right.
which is the mandatory events that the kids have to go to, and then the Sunday school class is called the
Christian layman.
Christian layman's juvenile services. And we only teach on Sunday mornings, which makes it kind of difficult for some people. But we can all, if we think about it, sacrifice one Sunday or even a month of Sundays for someone else. And we only do it once every 4 months because each church does Sunday school for a month. So you do it 1 month and you're off for 3 months. And so it's so rewarding. It is such a rewarding thing to do. You know, a few days ago, a couple of Sundays ago, we had a baptism, and that was, it's such a thrill to know that you've made a difference, that something you said, something you've done, something you've been a part of, it's changing a life. It's making a difference in someone's life. If you never experienced it, try it. It's really, really good.
Well, and it's one of the absolutely most clearly commanded things about
It surely
visiting
is.
the folks in jail and setting the
right, in
captives
prison.
free in all sorts of ways, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Is there some, or are there some kind of typical profiles of the young people that you're working with?
I think one of the stunning things, I guess, that I learned about was, and this is a statistic that was passed to me maybe a year or so ago, that 40% of those who are incarcerated out there are there on a drug and alcohol related charge. And of that 40%, half of those were doing the drugs or alcohol with a parent or a guardian. So
Wow.
that is that's what makes you bang your head up against the wall sometimes, I think, most of all. But we have folks who borrow the family car and go get drunk and locked up for a weekend, and we have those who are committed a capital offense and will be there for quite some time. So you have a whole gamut of youth there, but they're all the same.
Right.
I mean, it's really.
But by far the majority are people that are going to move through that and come back out into the
That's
community.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So
By
we
far.
have an enormous stake in
Absolutely.
their care and
Those kids are going to school with
rehabilitation.
your kids.
yeah.
I think one of the defining moments, I was leaving a class one time, and a young man raised his hand and said, "Tell Jacob I said hello," my oldest son. And I thought, oh man, here we go, you know.
Yeah.
And but it brings you back to really the necessity of what we're doing. That these folks are going to be in our communities. It is a regional facility, and it serves 15 Western Kentucky counties. So from all the way from probably Madisonville to Hopkinsville our way.
Well, Shirley, you described something that was enormously moving, which was the baptism of
Yes.
a young person. Do you, each of you have some encounter that you go back to keep you inspired and keep your passion high for this?
I think for me, it's, we've heard feedback from the staff and occasionally from one of the youth about how much the program has meant to them, or how much improvement they've seen in some of the young people, if it's coming from staff, because of the impact that the JVS program has had. I think just like this baptism, which thing that is just tremendous. Again, it's not us; it's God working
Right.
through us. And but one thing that made a big impression on me, and that was the fact that this young person's teachers came on their own time to attend the baptism. Some of the staff members came on their own time to attend that, and there were probably 5 or 6 volunteers. So, that's I don't see how you can get any more reinforcement than that. And just the change you see in some of these, especially these young people that have been there for some period of time. There have been several that it's just been a tremendous transformation. Not that it's all us, but it's
That's great.
hopefully we've had some little part
Oh,
of that.
yeah, that's a big part of it.
And every now and then you'll meet one on the street. Or I used to see them coming in and out of the courthouse. And sometimes they would be there going to court.
Yeah.
But sometimes it would be something as world changing for them as getting their driver's license. And for them to come up and say, Miss Shirley, thank you for coming to Juvenile. You know, as I said, it is a very, very rewarding thing for you. When you are being a blessing to someone, you're usually the one who's blessed.
Yeah, it really is. isn't it?
It's interesting how God has kind of worked that
He does.
formula that
He does.
that whatever we do, that
It
really
comes-
is coming
it comes
from
back to
our
you.
heart, and God's Spirit is
It sure does.
reinforced. Yeah. Well, before we run out of time completely, you mentioned that you had a need for Bibles.
Oh, yes,
And
we
so
do.
if viewers were interested in making contributions in that regard, or even organizing their own congregations, they would be in touch with you.
With me or with Michael.
That's the easiest way probably is to say Broadway Methodist Church or Harrison
Or
Street
Harrison Street Baptist.
Baptist Church. And yeah.
Are there other needs as well? You're open to volunteers, but are there other ways for people to
Absolutely.
support your
And
ministry?
you could do that with your prayers. For those young men and for the volunteers too. There's
And the staff.
And the
and
staff.
the staff,
staff.
absolutely. The
Tough
staff has
job.
been absolutely wonderful to work with, from Matt Harnett and Greg Lindsay and Kelly White and Rick Ealing. They're just they're by the book. They're going to do the rules because for them it's safety first for those kids. But they're just been very, very cordial in allowing us to participate in the lives of those kids.
Well, and the truth is, and this is about a lot of church things I've discovered, is it's not really volunteers we're looking for, is it? I mean, there's a different level of commitment here,
yes,
isn't
it
there?
is.
That's right.
It
Yes,
really
it
is this notion of just come in when it's easy to come is not part of the healing plan, is
Right.
it? It's a part of this.
It won't work, and you know that. I
Yeah.
mean, just like butting your head against the wall if you're just doing it. If you don't have the passion for it, it's not for everybody. I mean,
Right.
it's
No, it
not.
isn't.
Everybody has their own little gift. So, but I would encourage anybody out there who's thinking about that to give that a try.
Well, just briefly, how have your lives been changed as a consequence of this ministry that you've been involved in?
Well, I think for me personally, it has made me to value life more often. People I rub shoulders with, you never know who you're going to see, who you're going to be with.
Yeah.
That my own actions outside of the facility would do that, and it's had me dreaming about maybe some other stuff beyond what's going on here yet. So.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You see a growth in your own compassion for those kids that you see on the street, and keeps you praying.
Yeah.
It keeps you praying. It improves your prayer life.
Well, it's made a big impact on me. I think, as far as my knowledge of what goes on in some of our communities, which of course we'd rather didn't, but it really does give you compassionate heart and want to reach out to especially these youth that some of them have had it very, very tough and have had very, very little direction in their lives. So I think that's my hope and my prayer is just that, one little thing that I do and the rest of us, but that, there'll be an impact on
Accumulates,
changing a
doesn't
life.
it? It all is cumulative, doesn't it? Isn't it? I know, having worked as a prison chaplain at one point in my ministry, what really changed people wasn't the bars and the security, though,
Exactly.
as you say, safety is a big issue. but it was those relationships. It's interesting. The recidivism, the return, my experience had everything to do with the kind of relationships that person was allowed to have or gave themselves to. And you're making a great possibility out there for really, really important relationships to happen. Freeing, genuinely freeing relationships. It's neat. Anything else you need to tell us here about the work you do at the Juvenile Justice Facility here in McCracken County?
I'm just glad to get to work with somebody like this lady right here who's been a pioneer in this thing. And,
Yes.
and just thank Dave and so many people in my church for being so supportive of it. My pastor, David Comperry, and the little old lady who just calls up and says, hey, it's your turn to go. I mean, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that don't go into this thing, and some very good prayer warriors. And I think that's, for me, that's means an awful lot.
Any more encouragement for volunteers? Anything you're particularly looking for? Somebody to teach something special, or?
No, it's somebody with a passion. And like you said, it's not really a volunteer. It's somebody that has a calling for this thing. And we make it just as easy to access this as it possibly can, and without any pressure or you have to go in there by yourself. I think I can speak for all three of us. I've never, ever felt threatened while I was in there. And it's always been very, very respectful, and I think that has a lot to do with the staff. And they said strict, but you know, there's no fights out there to speak of like there used to be before this staff took over. And it's been a very, very, very good experience.
What translation of the Bible do you like to give away?
It is, we use the Zondervan Teen Study Bible.
With Revised
it's-
Standard. I believe it is.
Right, NIV.
NIV.
It's NIV.
All right.
And soft cover, can't take a hard cover in. And we try to keep it all that way because we want everybody to have the same, when we're teaching out of it, have the same.
Be on
Sure.
the same page.
Sure.
Makes life a lot simpler if they're all using the same Bible.
Thank you all so much
Thanks
for
for having
being
us.
here.
Thank you.
And thank you for your work. Dave Dewey,
Thank you for
Shirley
having
Rouse, Mike Gentry, wonderful gift to this community and to all of us.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us here on Reflections. And we invite you, however you can, whenever you can, to join Paducah Cooperative Ministry in doing God's work with our human hands. Shalom.
Shalom.